My guest this evening has acted in film and television for many years. She is currently starring in the hit film A Thousand Miles Behind. Her character of Tracy is an absolute scene stealer. Now, I'm not blowing smoke about that. That is absolutely true. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts virtual studio, Miss Vanessa Campbell. Vanessa.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me tonight about the film and yourself and everything else that you've done in your career. And I can't wait to get involved with all this kind of stuff. So
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
well, awesome. So let's see here. I've been kind of talking about things with most of the guests since it's just topical about the pandemic and the unrest and where we are now. It's July 2nd. So how are you doing down in California right now?
Oh, well, I live in a pretty densely populated area in LA. I live in a neighborhood called Echo Park, right by Dodger Stadium, sort of between downtown and Hollywood. And it's been pretty chill in my neighborhood. It's like everywhere. We had like a couple months there where there wasn't anything going on and everybody was staying home. And then lately things have started to slowly open up. And now when you go out, you see a lot more people. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. I actually got to go to Joshua Tree for a couple of weeks. And that was really nice. So I'm headed back out there tomorrow morning, actually, to just get some peace and quiet.
That sounds lovely. I'm envious of you doing that. And it's interesting that you mentioned Joshua Tree because there's a parallel. I know that the band Alice, who is doing this whole tour and these shows, they wrote their new album out of Joshua Tree.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so they've been releasing songs and singles leading up to the full release of the album, which I believe is going to come out at the end of this year and possibly early next. But yeah, I know they spent maybe it was 5 to 7 days out there writing the new album. So
yeah, it's a very inspiring environment, the desert, but particularly that desert because it has all the Joshua trees and the yuccas and there's, mountains nearby. So it's very picturesque and I don't know, the air just feels, especially after, coming from LA, it just feels, the desert air feels like it's doing something. I don't know.
Well, again, I'm envious. It sounds good. But yeah, so that's, kind of, we were talking pre-show that things are starting to amp up across the nation with COVID. And here in Washington, I was mentioning that the governor's got this new, if you don't wear a mask, then you don't get service starting on Tuesday because the cases have just been going through the roof. And for some reason, Washington's not showing up on the national media. They keep showing Arizona, Texas, Florida as states that are really kind of amping up. But we've had the highest increase in one day, I think, since the pandemic started, and people haven't caught on to that yet. But he's trying to do what he can to get people to do their part. And I was just out doing some errands earlier today, and I'm wearing my mask, and it looked like the majority of people were, but there's a few that weren't. Some people can't. I understand that for medical reasons, like legitimate medical reasons. And there's some of the people that just choose not to. And you're not going to get everybody involved, but hopefully get more than enough to start ratcheting this thing back down the way it was and flattening that curve. So
yeah. So basically the rule before up there was not, it was not mandatory to have a mask on when you were, like, for instance, in a grocery store or something.
It was, don't quote me on this, but I know the governor had said he wanted people to wear masks, but I don't think it was something that was considered mandatory. He was just hoping people would do the right thing. And then now this new press conference that happened today is going to change that to, now he's making businesses, it's mandatory for them to only serve patrons, customers that have a mask on. So this is going to get interesting because we've already seen some of this up here, at least, where someone's not wearing a mask, the business refuses service, then there's like a skirmish or an issue. I just actually saw one on the news. It's really topical. There's a Bavarian city here called Leavenworth, and there was a young teenager that went into this ice cream place to get an ice cream cone. She wasn't wearing a mask, so they refused her service. So her mom came back in and read them the riot act. And there was this whole thing. It was caught on video, on phone or whatever, and it started to go viral. So the one worker got fired for doing that in terms of how she talked back to the customer. And then the corporate business has now since said, no, she can have her job back. And she's like, well, I don't think I want my job back being treated that way. But that was before this mandate went into place. So when we hit Tuesday, and if you walk into your grocery store, is there going to be somebody there saying, hey, sorry, you can't come in without a mask? And if someone says, well, it's my right to not wear one, or all this other kind of nonsense that's out there, what happens then? I don't know.
Right. Well, I know here, at least all the stores I have shopped at, and I shop at everywhere from Trader Joe's to, the Whole Foods 365 market to Vaughn's, everywhere that I have gone, it is mandatory and you are not allowed in the store without a mask on. So that's why I was asking, because I'm so used to it now, like that they won't let you in to Trader Joe's without a mask on. You know what I mean? So I was actually curious about that because, it just seems like everything is varying from state to state and even sometimes county to county, because I went to a Vaughn's in Joshua Tree and I think mostly everyone was wearing masks, but not every single person was wearing one. And I don't think they were saying anything to people. But again, I don't know where that fell in the timeline of things opening back up or whatever. But here in LA, you are required to wear a mask. And I think you're just not allowed into a lot of places, especially grocery stores and banks and stuff, without the mask.
And it makes sense. So it sounds like that's where at least Washington's trying to head starting on Tuesday. That because I think, now that I think about it, it was actually King County, which is where Seattle is proper, that they were required, some date in June, they were required to be wearing masks. But I'm in Snohomish County, which is north of Seattle. And I think up here, because we're in phase 2 or something, that it was, again, recommended or please do so, but it wasn't going to be like a big deal if you didn't wear one. And now that's completely changed to, no, you need to be wearing one, and yeah, they're supposed to refuse you service if you're not. So we'll see what happens if the Washingtonians get used to it or not. We're a passive aggressive bunch up here. I'll tell you that. I've lived here my whole life, and people kind of think certain things of how we are, and there's a lot beneath the surface here in Washington. But I won't get into that because I want to talk to you about what you do, and not talk about the history of Washington State. So, as I mentioned during the intro, I got a chance to review 1,000 Miles Behind, and that was only because of me doing these film reviews during the pandemic. And for those out there that haven't seen it yet, and we're going to get a chance to watch the trailer in about 15, 20 minutes. It's a very serious film, serious topics going on, but then there's also so many things that can be learned from it. What I would love to know from you, Vanessa, just starting off, how did this project come across your desk? How did you get involved with it? And then we'll kind of work our way through different pieces of it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So Nathan Wetherington, the writer director of the film, is my partner, my longtime partner. And so he was working on this script and he was just sort of saying, I want to make this movie by myself with just a very skeleton crew of people and a tiny budget, and just go off and kind of have an adventure and make this film. So I think that he did a really great job of asking the right people to get involved, because the people who ended up working on the film, which there were only, a handful of us, and on any given day, the crew was between 4 and 6 people. So I think the most crew we ever had was 6 people. And so it was a lot of like running around and doing other people, doing makeup for people and just, doing all the jobs and wearing all the hats. And it was more of like a spirit of adventure and creativity for the sake of creativity and not for some gain or to, it just felt very pure. And that was so attractive to me as an actress because I think all of us that worked on the film are used to being on sets where, it's even a low budget film is often like multiple trucks and tons of crew and locations and permits. And, you just got all these apparatus going on around you all the time. And this movie was just really intimate in every possible way. So so that's how I got involved with it. And I felt really, really grateful and lucky to have gotten to be on that set because it was quite an experience,
Yeah, and when you were talking about the small crew and the purity of the project and things of that nature, there's yet another. I didn't plan this out, folks. I really didn't. There's yet another parallel with how Alice does her things, because everything they do is, for the most part, do it yourself. So when they did this whole virtual tour, and they have, if you get a chance after that we're done tonight, to look at one of the live clips they did from their live streams, you look like you're in a club. The light show, the streaming, the audio, the design, the cost, everything was done by the band, and they've never done anything like this before ever. So they like to look at things of like you were just saying earlier, that we're not looking for a gain, we're looking for an expression, and we're looking for something that we feel really strongly about, and we'll figure out how to do this. So they pulled all their heads together, and Carl's head together, and eventually my head, and everybody else, and
everybody's heads together.
Yeah, and this whole thing just kind of rolled, and here it's still rolling now. And sometimes those are the absolute best projects to be a part of, because it is so pure, and because it's being done for the right reasons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so your character of Stacy, correct? I want to make sure I got
Tracy.
That. Tracy. I was close. I was close. One too many letters. When you watch the film, and again, I don't want to give too much away for those that haven't watched it, but when your character comes into the storyline, everything changes. And how did you prepare yourself to portray that character? And also, do you find that some of yourself is in that character as well, in terms of her personality and what she brings to that storyline?
Yeah, I definitely have a large part of my personality that is very similar to Tracy in terms of the joie de vivre, or the free spirit kind of vibe. What makes Tracy really different from me and from so many other people is that she has this vibe of being this wounded healer, that her experience has given her the depth to be able to talk to somebody who is going through something really heavy and actually be helpful, versus most people when you're in a grief state or a state of shock or trauma, they can't reach you, they can't get to you. And I feel like her whole thing was, in approaching how to prepare this character, I thought, the most important thing to me is that this feels earned. And I feel like that is what grounded the character for me, because I feel like it could have just been this, oh, she's just this free spirit, and she, what would make her different from just like a fairy, in the woods or something, and that's not what she is,
Right.
And so it really, the script really alluded to the fact that she had this earned thing. And so even though it's not her story, preparing for her a backstory for me in order to be able to go in with that sort of groundedness in this experience that she had that was very similar to what the main character is going through, was really important to me to be able to create that, so that she didn't seem like this impossible person, but she would seem like, oh yeah, what, I've met people like that along the way. Or when I was in my deepest, darkest moment, it's so interesting how many times it'll be a total stranger that will listen to you or help you. And that's happened to me so many times in my life, where it's just a perfect stranger that reaches out. And in that moment, when I need that person is there, and we have an exchange, and then that person goes on their way, and it's really quite beautiful. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure that I did that, justice.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did, because like you were saying, trying to give her purpose as a character, it absolutely seemed organic and natural that your character came along at this particular time. It wasn't somebody who was like doing this like in some sort of charge in their life that they have to go around trying to, connect and help people. It was something that naturally happened in terms of how their paths crossed. And then the things that she had to say came across like there was weight to them, but not in a weight that's pushy. It's just a weight to for this main character to really kind of consider and think about, that there's a way to move forward eventually. There's a way to take this on and get past it. And there's a way to look at other perspectives on something, even when you don't want to look at it when you're in something as heavy as what that character is going through. You brought so much to that role. That's why, and I'm not blowing smoke. When I was watching this and when you came on and you had a few lines, I'm like, who is that? I mean, immediately I wanted to know, who is that? Because you just kind of jumped out with your character and your acting and everything about it. So it just spoke so much to what you must have been doing, again, behind the scenes to prepare to make sure that she came across just the way that you said, because it absolutely did to me. So it was, yeah, no, it was absolutely beautiful watching how you brought this character to life that helped someone who she didn't know get through such a difficult time for him. And then she kind of goes on her way. And there's nothing, I have a friend who taught me a long time ago that he tries to do things and he doesn't look for something in return. And it's easy to say and hard to do. And I was one of those people. It would be like, hey, I did this for my neighbor. And then maybe 6 months down the road, I'm like, well, hey, I did that for you. Can't you help me? And he really kind of taught me that if you do it because you want to and you're not expecting anything in return, watch your life change. And I've really been trying to work on that for the last 10 years personally, because it's so true. Because if you genuinely are wanting to do something and you're not looking for something in return, you're not looking for money, payback, return the favor, pat me on the back, I pat you on the back, that kind of stuff, that you're just doing because you want to, man, so many things change for me. And I know watching how he lives his life, that all these things have changed for him. And I think there's something similar to your character in that film, where it's like, I'm trying to do this and I'm not trying to do it for any other reason than to do it. And if we never see each other again, then that's so be it. But if we do, that's fine too. But I'm not looking for something, and that's rare.
Also, yes. And also sometimes when we do ask somebody if they would like our help and they refuse us, it's so easy to take it personally, or to get our feelings hurt, or to feel resentful or embarrassed. Oh, why did I put myself out there? I asked if that person needed help. Now they hate me, or they think that I'm thinking of them as weak, or who know, whatever the trip is. And I think that, what your friend was saying too, it makes so much sense, because it's like you offer your service. And then also, if the answer is no, you offered, and that's the thing that matters. That's what it's about, the extension of yourself. It's about the offering of help, and not so much what the outcome is. And I felt like, Tracy really gets that, in the script. It's like so many times where Preston turns her down, or where he is even rude to her, and I could see how people in certain festivals we were in would be watching the movie and they would get kind of uncomfortable, like, oh God, like he's being such a jerk, or whatever it is, or, what's going to happen here. But it's so her character that she is so beyond taking that personally.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's, again, a testament to your acting and the way that you brought that character to life. Also to your partner who wrote it and wrote that screenplay. That when I was watching the film, especially because it starts off a little bit slow because of what happens, and he needs to figure out what he's going to do to try to deal with this trauma. And then it starts going through these arcs. And when your character shows up, and then you see what happens to him, then you see what happens to him again. And at the very end, obviously, which again, I won't give away. It was just, one of the most beautiful films I'd seen in a long, long time. And again, don't get me wrong, the main actor was tremendous, but without your character in there, I don't know exactly where that film would have gone. It would have gone somewhere else, I think. So it needed your character and it needed your performance, more importantly.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
agree.
This is probably a really good time to show the trailer.
Yeah.
We do have it. So for the Alice folks down in LA, if you could show the trailer to the viewers out there right now, that would be perfect, please.
Preston.
Theo?
It's like this thing happened, and then my whole life was erased in the blink of an eye. I have nothing left. I mean, how am I supposed to live?
By letting it in. You let it in so that you can let it go.
Dig yourself out of this any way you can every single day of your life. Get up in the morning and think, how can I move forward?
So there's the trailer for all of you out there, and you can watch it, right? You can watch the film online, video on demand, and all the usual platforms that you want to watch things at. And so let's kind of go back about your background. So were you always wanting to be an actress? Were you a musician? Were you a theater person? Where's your formative years, and how did you end up being where you are today?
Yeah, I think, growing up in Los Angeles and in California, and it being such an industry heavy, town, and it's kind of all around you. But I grew up pretty removed from that. My mother is from Mexico. My father's from Peru, and they emigrated to the United States and settled in Los Angeles and met in Los Angeles. And so we had, we grew up in a pretty strict household, Catholic, very go to church on Sundays, and speak only Spanish in the house. And so that sort of wasn't around, but my parents loved movies, and we loved watching movies, and, old movies, new movies, everything, going to the movies. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is, I just want to be a part of this, just in whatever way, I just want to be a part of this. And so I did a couple years of film school at Loyola Marymount when I was 18, and studied screenwriting. And at that time, I got an agent and started going out for commercials and print work and music videos and stuff. And I started working. I had a beginner's luck thing, and so I quit school. I was like, oh, this is it. I'm just going to be an actor now, and I started pretty heavily just studying acting, studying drama, studying comedy, studying improv, doing some theater, taking a lot of dance classes, voice lessons, just the whole deal. And the more I learned, the more passionate I became. And then being on a set, I just realized not everybody, likes being on set. A lot of people it's not for everybody. And I know a lot of people who thought they wanted to be actors or be in the film industry. And then they got there and they were like, I just don't like being on set. It's too much of, it's you get up at 4 and then you're being rushed around all day and everybody's doing their job and there's this hierarchy and you're usually on a lot and it's, this and that. And then you don't act the way that you do in theater, you're shooting things out of order and out of sequence and very much expected to just be ready at a moment's notice. But I just love it. And I feel just like I'm so grateful every time I'm on a set, whether it's a commercial or a music video or a film or whatever it is. So I knew I loved it. And it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's been a total roller coaster. And there's been so many years where I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I still doing this? Like, you know, and it's a precarious, you know, career to get into. Everybody knows that, and super competitive. But I think that the thing that really gets me through it and gets so many people through it is the gratitude when you are on a set or when you are working. It's that you start to realize that it really isn't about whether the movie does well or whether the movie made it into every house or whether it became a hit or whether this or that. Like, it really, the thing that I take with me is, I thought it would be like, you know, people seeing it, people I know seeing it and calling me up, or somebody, you know, that I know saying, oh, I saw this movie, or the attention or the money or the party or whatever that you think it's going to be. And it ends up just being that experience of being on set with your friends or with some cool people, with some creative people, that ends up really feeling like the thing, you know. It's that whole, the journey, not the destination, you know. That's what really matters. So yeah, I'm in LA and I'm acting. I am also a musician and also a dancer, and yeah.
Okay, no, and everything you made perfect sense. I know for me that when I started doing this media outlet, that it was a lot of doing written interviews, and I was reviewing music because I'm a huge music person, had music connections for the longest time. And even prior to that, I was working with models, doing model photography. And when I think back about it, it was really about those experiences with certain people that I remember the most. It wasn't so much about this particular shot did well or somebody wanted to publish it or I got paid for that. It was, man, remember that time when we were taking the ferry over there to that location? And it's some of the best things. I think that's so true about everything in life, that it really does come down to the experiences, because that's what you remember. You don't remember the minutia of what you did 5 years ago. You remember that person or that situation you were in or something like that. And I'm looking at this.
Even
Go
if
ahead.
it's really successful and it's still, you think it's going to like give you something or fill some hole or do something, you know, but really it's really great when that happens, but it doesn't feel as good as, you know, maybe you told yourself it was going to. But what does last is the people, what you said, it's the people, the experiences you have with other people. That's what really makes it worth it.
Yeah, no, and again, I couldn't have said it better in terms of even like doing these interviews. Some of the people I had met prior doing in-person interviews pre-pandemic, some people I didn't know at all. Obviously, we just met right now ourselves. And it's so interesting that I could look through the different people that, if it's local artists, bands, actors, opera people, ballet, and I can think, when did I meet that person? And it could have been, in one case, it was like 11 years ago. And then here we are, you know, still doing this kind of thing. Or someone that I just met 2 days ago. Or again, in some cases, people I haven't met at all. But it's just, I'm one of those people that I like to stand back and kind of look at things, and it just kind of makes me feel good about that. When things aren't so good, either personally or what's going on in society, I can look at these other things like, no. There's a lot of good things that have happened, and don't ever lose sight of that. And sometimes I need little reminders. So, and I'll be completely honest, I have not seen this film, but it kept coming up when I was doing research on you about your participation in Garfield. So I'm wondering if you could speak to that, because everything that I saw, it kept saying Garfield, Garfield, Garfield. And
oh my
so
gosh.
can you tell me about that experience, since it was X amount of years ago? And
oh,
again,
Mark, it's so crazy. It's like, yeah, I'll tell you, that was a huge budget, you know, definitely by far the biggest thing I've ever been a part of in terms of budget. And I think I was just a kid and I didn't get it. I didn't understand. Like, to me, it was just like, I don't know. I think I wish I would have, like what we were talking about earlier, I wish I would have like taken the experience in more and like really drunk it in and been like, wow, you know, this is this is incredible, like the huge lights and the big studios and the, all the people and, animal wranglers and just craziness going on. And all I really remember about it is, that I was, when you get on a set like that, nobody tells you like what to do. Nobody goes, oh, you've never done this before. Okay, we're going to like sit you down and explain this to you or whatever. So I didn't even really understand about like, they would say something, I want to say like not a mark, like that had already happened. But like, I didn't come from a Hollywood family. I didn't come from an industry family. I didn't have anybody sort of telling me what to do or what was going on or whatever. And so I just remember being really clueless and getting there and doing my best and feeling like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just remember that they said something and I didn't realize that we were rolling and I, didn't go, and then they stopped and they had to come over and be like, we were rolling. And so you got to like, don't mess up, you know what I mean? And so I felt like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I think that experience was like, I would have enjoyed it so much more, like, had I had a little more experience. And then when the movie came out, it, like so many of those really big budget films, I basically got cut out of it, so I you see me there, but my scenes that I had were completely cut out. And so, here's like, my mom going to see it and everybody I know, and then calling me or texting and being like, I didn't see you in the movie, and I was like, oh God. Then I felt like I had told all these people that I was in this movie and I wasn't actually in the movie. And, it's just, I mean, I am in the movie, but my speaking scenes were cut. And this was just my first lesson in the reality of the industry, so don't tell anybody anything until you see it and you see yourself in it.
There you go, folks. Sound advice. I know one of the models I'd known a long time ago. She was an extra on a lot of films down in LA and Hollywood, and she told a similar story to me. She was supposed to be, or she filmed a scene on that Tom Hanks film when he's in the terminal, when he's in the airport terminal, and she's just in the background. She's one of the Asian extras that they had, and she had done the same thing. She told everyone, every friend, every family member, watch this scene and you'll get to see me, be like 10 feet away from Tom Hanks's character or whatever. And then so she went like the opening night or whatever locally. And when that scene came up, there's some other person as the actor that they focused in on. You can't see her at all. So she was just in tears and mortified, and they're all looking at her like, where were you? Did we miss it? Can we have to watch it again or something? Or wait for DVD to come out and try to freeze it? And she learned her lesson, like, yeah, moving forward, I'm going to make sure that I actually see myself in the finished product. And then I'll let people know, hey, in scene 2, and whatever else, look for me by the church or look for me over here. And it was just like so interesting to hear about that. What you think happened on the set doesn't necessarily mean it made it past the editing room to the finished product.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I've had whole scenes I did a movie where I had this whole scene with Nicolas Cage where I was defending him with this Hispanic boss, and I had to like speak in Spanish with the boss and then speak in English with Nicolas Cage. And, here I am doing this dream come true thing. I'm like, I'm next to Nicolas Cage, first of all. And then, he's being Nicolas Cage and I get to speak Spanish and English. And I just thought, oh, what a great thing, but again, you just have to remember the experience and know that you had it. And when, the movie came out, that scene was gone, and again, you see me and I'm there and I'm in the scene, but that part gone.
Wow. This is, see, for people that like myself that only watch films and I've never been behind on a set or anything like that, I love hearing these kind of things, because I'm the guy that like when Laserdisc came out, but when like DVDs and Blu-rays came out, I always wanted the special features because I want to see how things are made, or when they're talking to the cast. And so hearing these kind of stories are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing what that experience was like for you. It actually brought up something else that another guest had said earlier, that for her, a lot of times when she was going on auditions, she always felt that she was her worst critic, which is kind of typical for a lot of artists and creative people. But she's like, no, I really felt with the film that she was in currently that she blew it. There's no way she's going to get off of that part. And then like 5 days later, they did a callback for her. And then she thought she did worse on that interview. And she was like calling up her partner and in tears and saying, I need to quit the business. I need to go do something else. This is awful. And then she got the part. Have you had anything like that during your many auditions that you've had for different projects?
Oh my God, all the time. I feel like for me, I don't feel like, generally speaking, actors know when what they've done is hitting and when it's not, because I feel like we are so full of like, self-loathing or whatever you want to call it, we're just like starving for attention, whatever it is that gets us into this, whatever messed up thing is inside of us where we want to do this, and then it's just like, so much of the industry is just taking rejection. And I feel like most of us, get really used to the rejection and even telling ourselves like, oh, it's cool. Like I'm very good at taking rejection, but I think it colors something. And so a lot of times when I did a great job, I will tell myself that I blew it. And definitely the other way is true too. If I think, oh, I thought that was a really, really solid take, and then the director says like, that really didn't work, or, whatever it is, it happens all the time. I think that the best thing that, for me that I can do as an actor is to be as prepared as I can be, and then just take a breath and enter into it and just let it all go and just be in the scene without any, with as little thought behind it as possible, just try to be there and live in those imaginary circumstances and then leave it there, because
the people that I've talked to, even locally, just theater actors as well, that they thought maybe they're going to get a cast for a part. But I nailed that, and then like, oh, I didn't get a call back.
Oh my gosh. Every time I think I nailed it, I don't hear anything. And then I had a commercial audition. This was a few years ago. And the director was just like, no, that's not it. Like, I want you to do it this way. So I did it that way. And then he's like, no, you're not getting it. And it just went on. And I thought, wow, I've been in here in this room for a long time. Like, I feel like no one else was in here this long. And I thought, he's just torturing me, like he's just like, no, you're not getting this. And I just kept thinking, okay, I'm not getting it. But I kept trying. And then I went home and I was like, I don't know what that was, but I know for sure I didn't give him what he wanted. And then I got it,
Oh man.
Maybe he just thought, wow, really tried to break her down and she just couldn't be broken down. So she's in. She can do 200 versions of this and not leave the room,
Well, like you were saying, it's about the process. And at the end of the day, if it rolls your way, then great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And you just move on to the next thing. And I realize with COVID-19 going on and all that kind of thing, almost everything's at a standstill. But do you have anything in the pipeline that you've been working on? Not just film-wise, but like you mentioned dance and music. What have you been kind of doing to kind of occupy your time?
Yeah, I've been dancing a lot. It's something that I can do in my home. So I've been doing that and taking that real seriously, and then doing just a lot of writing. So there is a script that I've been working on for longer than I care to admit. And, it's just always the time to sit and write. And I'm the kind of person that needs to just be alone and really talk out loud and hash it out. And this COVID has given me, the COVID giveth, the COVID taketh away. It did give me that time, there's virtually no auditions, and it's just kind of, everything's really dead right now. So I've been working on my script, and I am very close to a first draft, which is really exciting. And it's just a really dark comedy. I mean, I think it's funny. I don't know if anyone else will think it's funny. Maybe it's a horror movie, but I think it's funny.
Well, they always say that you want to make sure when you create anything that it's something that you like first. So you don't do it for other people, do it for yourself. And if you think it's funny.
Most days I'm like, I hate it, and then I love it, and then I hate it. And that's how it goes. I think with a lot of the creative process is like toggling between like, I'm a good writer and I have no business being a writer,
I know all too well with what you speak, being a writer myself, that that self-loathing thing comes in quite often with my writing, including the tour report that I was just talking about at the beginning of this show, that I spent 5-6 days working on that thing. And some days I'm like, yeah, this kind of feels like the flow and what I want to get out to the people that read it. And then 2 minutes later, it's like, this sucks.
This is terrible. This is the worst thing ever. What was I thinking? Yeah.
Yep. And I would leave it. I said, I'm just going to take a break. I'll come back to it later with, fresh eyes and all that kind of thing, fresh attitude. And I'll look at it and go, this still sucks.
Yeah.
And eventually,
part of the process.
it is. It absolutely is part of the process. And Vanessa, it was awesome talking with you and getting to know you.
Yeah.
And everyone out there, again, check out 1,000 Miles Behind. It's such an amazing film. And Vanessa's so awesome in there as the character of Tracy. And have fun at Joshua Tree. Stay safe down there. And maybe our paths will cross again in the future. Who knows?
I would love that. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
Right. Bye.